Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Case IH, solutions for every challenge, equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us here for This Week in Agribusiness. I'm Mike Pearson. We begin this weekend with agronomy for your acres with our friends from Nutrient Ag Solutions. Now, ordinarily, we're talking agronomics and crop potential on agronomy for your acres, but with most acres in the country dormant this time of year, we're going to focus on something else equally important. Joining us is Jordan Howe. He's the Nutrient Financial Area Manager. And Jordan, thank you so much for speaking with us this weekend.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate the time.
Fill us in a little bit on Nutrient Ag Solutions' financial offerings. What all did you guys bring to the table?
Yeah, so we offer financial services to our grower customers of Nutrient Ag Solutions. We're an ag company, an ag retailer for Nutrient Ag Solutions. So when we can partner and be able to offer financial services to the farmers, we believe with our agronomic expertise, and then if we can bring the capital management expertise to the table, we can offer a lot of solutions for the farmers out there.
So it's an interesting way to have finance working hand in glove with that agronomy, isn't it, Jordan?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's what we pride ourselves on. We know how the farmers, based on their production needs and how they get paid as farmers, to be productive and to be sustainable and profitable. So when we can offer the agronomic expertise with first-in-class products from the agronomic side, but then partner it with the best capital management solution to be able to match our growers' cash flow needs, we believe it's a solution that can set ourselves apart, but most importantly, set our farmers up for success in the future.
That's what it's all about, because farmers do face a number of unique challenges. Financing is one of them. Jordan, what are you hearing from farmers on the ground about their financing challenges?
Yeah, so with a little bit lower commodity prices, fortunately for a lot of our growers, they just took a big crop out of the field, but lower commodity prices than we've been used to with pretty stable input cost. The volatility with interest rates, high interest rates through much of the 2024 growing season, and really uncertainty of what's happening moving forward. There's some concerns out there just based on when we're looking at the balance sheets and looking at a plan for 2025. We need to make sure we explore all of our options to set everybody up for success and hopefully relieve some of those stresses when it comes to how the cash flow is going to work moving into 2025.
Well, that's certainly true. So let's talk in a little more detail about it. What can Nutrient Financial bring to the table to help farmers in this challenging environment?
So that's where we really use our relationships with our strategic suppliers, whether that be the chemical manufacturers or the seed manufacturers. We partner with them to be able to put together a program to be able to offer financing for their products and some of our products as well, that will give them competitive low interest rate programs with due dates that are around harvest or following harvest, so that they can have a little more flexibility during the season to make the best decisions for those acres. And we never want people to be limited on the products they can use, the best products to be able to grow the most bushels or the most pounds. We know the name of the game is productivity. So if we can assist and give a little flexibility in those purchases to alleviate some of those cash flow constraints during the season, that's what we're striving for.
That's what it's all about. Jordan, before we let you go, if we've got audience members who want to learn more about the offerings from Nutrient Financial, where would you send them?
I'd send them to nutrientagsolutions.com, find their nearest Nutrient Ag Solutions retailer. And that's the nice part, is being sort of a one-stop shop at Nutrient Ag Solutions. Our Nutrient Financial services are offered throughout all of our Nutrient Ag Solution retail branches. So just partner up locally with your crop consultant at your local Nutrient Ag Solutions, and you'll be good to go, and we can get you more information.
All right, turn to that trustworthy local expert right there at nutrientagsolutions.com. Jordan Howe, we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us this week.
Thank you, Mike.
This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone. The U.S. consumer is by far the largest consumer of protein raised here in America. But over the past 25 years, meat exports have surged, and those exports have been able to add a lot more profitability to meat producers' bottom lines. Joining us now for an update on the meat export situation is Joe Sheely. He serves as the Vice President of Communications for the U.S. Meat Export Federation. And Joe, thank you so much for talking with us this week.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
You know, it's pretty amazing what the USMEF has done in partnership with other groups throughout the country to build meat exports over the past 25 years. It has been a phenomenal story, hasn't it, Joe?
Yes, it has. And you make a good point in your opening, Mike, about the importance of, we're very fortunate to have a large and robust domestic market here in the U.S. for red meat. And we don't ever want that to change. But exports are a good way of complementing that domestic demand, shipping some of the more underutilized products to our overseas customers. And as you say, that adds profitability, not just to livestock producers, but throughout the whole supply chain.
That is a great point. Of course, all those animals are carrying some grain with them, too, as they move overseas. Joe, let's talk about some of the bright spots in the world of meat exports. As I understand it, pork exports have been hot all year round. What do we know from September's export sales?
Right. We only have numbers through September, but we're confident that we will see a record for both volume and value this year. On the value side, we'll probably be up over $8.5 billion for the year. And of course, the star performer there is Mexico. We will have a record in Mexico of over $2.5 billion. Mexico accounting for about $20 for every hog slaughtered in the United States. And so phenomenal performance there, but there are also some other important bright spots. We are on a record pace for pork to Central America and Colombia. Also, we had a record last year to the Dominican Republic, and we're right on that same pace this year. And then while we won't have a record in Korea, it'll be our second largest year in Korea. So really strong performance there, and some smaller markets that have performed very well. Markets like Malaysia, the Philippines, and Oceania. A lot of pork going into Australia and New Zealand this year that accounts for that record. And when you look at that record pace, it's really a remarkable success story, because when you go back to our previous highs at the start of this decade, that's when China was buying just a tidal wave of imported pork. Our volumes to China are not nearly at that level now, and yet here we are just a couple of years later looking at new records.
Joe, now I remember when China first started making that big surge of purchases, it was driven by the impact of African swine fever. As you look at sales around the rest of Southeast Asia right now, does ASF still play a part in pork demand?
Oh, it certainly does. We have countries like for example, the Philippines, Malaysia, Vietnam, where their domestic production has been impacted by ASF. Also, the Dominican Republic struggles with ASF. And of course, if we could wipe ASF off the planet, we certainly would. It's a disease that we don't want any part of. We certainly don't want it in the United States. We hate to see any trading partner hit with it. But when it does affect domestic production in a particular region, it certainly opens up some opportunities for our industry.
Absolutely. Gives that American pork a place to move and to shine. We've got a lot coming, Joe. We're going to talk about what's happening in the beef market, beef exports, and with lamb exports. So folks, leave it here. We'll have more with Joe Sheely, Vice President of Communications from the U.S. Meat Export Federation, when we return. This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone. And we're back talking the state of meat exports with Joe Sheely, the Vice President of Communications with the U.S. Meat Export Federation. Joe, you mentioned how Mexico is proving to be a bright spot for the pork export industry. Is it also a bright spot for beef exporters here in 2024?
Yes, Mexico's demand for beef has been very strong. Part of that, early in the year, we were attributing part of that to the strength of the peso, which relative to other trading partner currencies was extremely strong early in the year. Kind of might have heard some reference to the super peso, and that was enhancing Mexican buyers' buying power. They were competing for cuts that they previously might have went to Asian markets, for example. But even as the peso has weakened, come down to more normal levels, later in the year, their buying has not diminished. We've had a really outstanding year for beef exports to Mexico, one of our best years ever.
Well, that is good news, Joe. As you look around the world, other places where U.S. beef has shined even at these elevated price levels, which we've been at now for 2+ years in the beef market, are we seeing continued demand from Asia?
Well, the issue we face in Asia is that our largest markets there are Korea, Japan, and China. And the consumer economies in each of those countries, and I would just say especially in China, has been rather weak. And so that has affected what we were anticipating as a strong rebound in the food service sector, in the restaurant sector, in those big Asian markets, has not really materialized at the pace that we were hoping for. We'll still have a good solid year in Korea and Japan. Demand will hopefully show some momentum soon in China, but those three markets are all a bit down from where we were a couple of years ago. We had record exports in 2022 with all of those markets performing very well, but we haven't seen the rebound that we'd hoped for. Now, Taiwan would be a bright spot in Asia. We got off to kind of a slow start this year for beef to Taiwan, but it has rebounded nicely, and we hope that some of those larger markets in Asia will follow suit. We also currencies. We have issue with currencies being fairly weak, especially the Japanese yen. We're hoping for a bit of a rebound there, and those would all enhance the consumer buying power in those markets, and we're hoping to see a bit more momentum in 2025.
Now that makes sense, Joe. And even though we're seeing total export volume for beef come down a little bit this year, given the tightness of the U.S. cattle supply, we're still seeing exports add tremendous value to each head of beef processed, aren't we?
Right. We will be down just slightly in volume from a year ago when our year-end numbers come in, but we'll be up about 5% in value, which tells you that of the supply we have available to export, it's commanding excellent prices. And that's translating to right around $415 per every steer and heifer slaughtered, and that's a big number. If you go back to 2022 when we were at a record pace, we were up maybe closer to 440, but 415 is a very strong number, and that's something that we always watch because it tells you that even in a time of tight supplies and even in a time of strong domestic demand, we're still exporting the beef supply we have available for export is commanding a good price and returning strong dividends to the producer.
That is great news. That is what we like to see, that value coming back to the American farm and ranch where that critter was raised. Joe Sheely, Vice President of Communications with the U.S. Meat Export Federation, thank you so much for speaking with us this week.
Thank you, Mike.
Greg Solier now brings us his farm weather forecast for the week ahead.
As always, Greg's been watching the weather across the country. And Greg, what are you expecting to see across the Pacific Northwest this week?
Pretty quiet, uneventful spell of weather. Nice mild go of it for outdoor work. Early on into the week, these cold air systems, trowels, clippers, if you will, continue to make their way out of the Canadian prairie into the northern plains. So more or less a midwinter chill of late, especially where the snow cover has been bountiful from Montana on eastward. But think of it as additional moisture recharge once we get into the melt season. Nice snow pack and snow cover across the Cascades and northern Rockies of late. We do have a system offshore early in the week. By the middle and late portions of the week, that system will come ashore. Some shower activity for northern California, rain snow mix across the Cascades and into the northern Rockies and Canadian Rockies. A couple of snow showers and flurries will extend southward into the central Rockies with another lobe of cold air settling on southward. Yeah, it's been pretty tough out there for livestock operations. If you weren't prepared for it, nighttime readings have been down, if not round, perhaps even below zero in some spots, so that trend will continue on over the northwestern reaches of the country through the late portion of the week. A little troughiness over the southwestern sections of the country, a dash of moisture for the southern high plains. Nice to have the recent snows over the central and southern Rockies. Santa Ana conditions perhaps settle into southern California with sunshine for the valleys and locales of California after the early morning fog burns away. Later into the week, a little change across the valleys of California. Cotton harvest winding down through Arizona and little rain snow mix again over parts of the plains. Seasonal temperatures over the central and southern plains, Oklahoma and Texas, so no real tough chill stress on man nor beast into the southern plains later in the week.
I understand we saw a shot or two of snow across the northern Corn Belt last week. Greg, any chance of those next week?
Yeah, they continue on. You know, these systems tend to intensify of late as they get into the Great Lakes region, into the northeast of New England, and that's where you have the wind component come into play. And yeah, kind of a midwinter feel out there. But again, we have cool soils across the Corn Belt, and from time to time, a little skiff and skosh of snowfall has come on by. A little change in that thinking here for this week. One cold front, secondary cold front, the main mother lode of the cold up near the Canadian border. But we'll get these systems to kind of rotate from northwest to southeast. The cold air remains trenched across much of the northern and western Corn Belt. Late in the week, another weak clipper system. Nothing of scale or magnitude unless you're still digging out from the lake snows, which will come into play from time to time again into Michigan, Ohio, and into the lower lakes region there, back into play the late portion of the week. And again, another weak system or two coming out of the southern plains, heading into the Ozarks. A little bit of rain, shower activity early in the week. Seasonal temperatures for the Delta and points on eastward coming off the scattered frost and freeze all the way to the Gulf Coast last week. Some wind-blown cooler air in the southwestern reaches of the country early in the week. Mid to late portions of the week, nothing impressive. We'll take any shower activity to ease drought conditions into Oklahoma, back up and through Missouri. Milder environs coming off the chill of last week across the Delta. Quiet weather, too, for the desert southwest.
What are you seeing, Greg, as you look all the way across to the eastern seaboard of the country?
Overall, uneventful, no major systems of the maps and charts, just a frequency of these clipper systems, one through the Canadian Prairie, one coming out of the southern plains, cold high pressure into the northeast of New England, and the dig out continues downwind of Lake Erie and Ontario, where that west-southwest wind flow remains in a position, and we'll get additional lake snows, 5-6 feet already on the ground. They're still digging out in this particular part of the country. Cooler air into the northeastern part of the country. It's still cold for the time of year, but will begin to moderate here shortly across the Corn Belt with a couple of snow showers and flurries. Nothing big across the corn and bean complex over the middle and late portions of the week. Welcome rains across Florida, the Gulf Coast, and temperatures come up as well. Had some frost all the way down past Orlando last week. Chilly weather across the mid-Atlantic region. Late portion of the week, another weak weather system. A couple of showers for parts of Oklahoma and through Texas. Gulf Coast shower activity. Temperatures beginning to recover across the mid-Atlantic region, so no major systems on the maps and charts. We'll have the extended outlook, the 4-week forecast coming up later in the broadcast.
Closed captioning for This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Pentair Hypro, a global leader in innovative spray technology for farmers for over 75 years.
Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness, ladies and gentlemen. It's no surprise that farming is a job that relies on the family on the farm to do it. Oftentimes, if an illness were to strike a family and that farmer can't perform the work, it doesn't get done. Well, maybe that's starting to change just a little bit. Recently, at the National Association of Farm Broadcasting Annual Convention, I had the chance to catch up with good friend Terry Johnston about his new role at Farm Rescue. And I asked him, Terry, what is Farm Rescue?
So the idea is kind of built off the premise of neighbor helping neighbor, and with the idea of getting folks that are going through a tough time over the hump, get them through a hardship. So that can be a lot of different things. That can be planting, harvesting, haying, livestock feeding, whatever we can do to help. We bring men and machines and try to get the work done for them so they can focus on recovery and keep going and come out the other side.
So when that farm family has a tragedy, can't get that crop out, they can lean on Farm Rescue and get everything done.
That is correct, yep.
How many families does the organization work with in a given year, Terry?
So it varies, but I would say around 100 families that we generally help. This last year, for example, I think it was 102 to be exact in our fiscal year. And so that was a combination of farming help, which we would call haying, harvesting, planting, and then because of the Operation Hay Lift we did this, there was some wildfires, as maybe you recall, in February and March of this year. And so we hauled hay to about 45, 46 families in those areas that were devastated by wildfire.
2025 is a big year for Farm Rescue, 20th anniversary, is that right?
It is, so we're super excited about that. We've been able to serve about 1,200 families since our inception. So we were technically founded in 2005. Our first case was in the spring of 2006, but 2025 is our anniversary, and we hope to do a lot of fundraising and getting really focused on the next 20 years, because my guess is the next 1,200 are going to come much quicker, and we want to be prepared to be able to do that. That is our goal. We want to help more families in the states we're in, and of course, ultimately, we would love to expand out into other states. We have inquiries all the time, and so we would like to do that as effectively and efficiently and as soon as possible.
Terry, if we've got viewers who want to be a partner with Farm Rescue, they want to donate, they want to support the organization, or they want to drive a combine or a truck on somebody's farm, where can they go to learn more?
Yeah, so the best thing, Mike, just go to our website. It's farmrescue.org, so folks can sign up for help, like fill out an application for assistance. They can refer a family, and that's huge, Mike. Farm families are proud, or they don't know about us, so they don't get our help. So please, if you know of somebody that needs help, refer a family to us. And then, of course, they can donate, which is always appreciated. And then, as you mentioned, sign up as a volunteer. We have an army of about 600, but we can always use more. So please, if you would like to serve, we would love to have you.
Thank you, Terry. And, you know, he said they're always looking for more volunteers. I've spoken with a couple of farmers who are finding that they're maybe needed less on their own operation, looking for more work to do in retirement. They're signing up to help at Farm Rescue. Well, also at the National Association of Farm Broadcasting Conference, Lainey Beetsma had the chance to catch in with the folks from Solutions for the Land to hear about the history of that organization and what they're looking forward to down the line.
Well, back in 2004, a group of farmers were sitting around the table talking about the meaningful role that agriculture could play in our nation's energy supply. So they talked about the concept of all the things we can produce on America's farms, ranches, forestry. So we began talking about biofuels, solar, wind, hydro, biomass products that could be part of our nation's energy mix. And over the first couple years, they determined that setting a goal of 25% of our nation's energy from those renewable resources by the year 2025 would be a great target. So we were very successful in 2007 getting that message as part of the Energy Security Act. We had a number of governors across the country that signed on, had Congress got it included in the bill. So that was really where we started from, and so 20 years later, we've made progress toward that goal, where I think 20% of our nation's electricity is now from renewables.
So 20 by 25, crazy to think that we've reached that 2025 mark at this point, and now transitioning to Solutions of the Land. Is the main motive still behind it, the company, the basis of the route still the same as we look beyond 25?
Well, it's still a grassroots organization, and once we got into that growth of the renewables from America's ranch lands, farmlands, we decided that, really we're doing a lot of things that have positive impacts on the environment, whether that's no-till production, the use of cover crops, all the things that we look at today as being climate smart agriculture. Really, we're playing a meaningful role as part of an ancillary benefit of our renewables. So that kind of shifted the focus to being solutions from the land. We have had a lot of critics over the years that claim agriculture is part of the problem, and really we say we're part of the solution set to move the continent forward and the globe in talking about climate mitigation and dealing with those kinds of issues and variability across the planet.
Is there a website that farmers can go to?
25by25.org is a good place to start. Search for Solutions from the Land online and you'll find a plethora of information. We've got some new studies that have come out in several of the states where we have climate smart ag programs developed. So a lot of exciting things coming, and we look forward to more in the future.
Thank you, Lainey, for that conversation. And there are exciting things happening in the world of biofuels. Solutions for the Land target was 20% domestic fuel supply coming from biofuels, which we've hit. Importantly, in 2024, we are seeing exports of American ethanol move around the world. So biofuels are becoming part of the world's fuel supply. Leave it here. We'll have more This Week in Agribusiness when we return.
Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Case IH, solutions for every challenge, equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers.
Over the past year, we've had the chance several times to talk with Mike Newland. He serves as the Director for Agriculture Business Development with the Propane Education and Research Council. And we've talked a lot about utilizing propane on the farm. But he joins us now, and we're going to talk about PERC's role in the propane industry. Mike, thanks for taking the time to talk with us.
You bet. Thank you again.
Propane Education and Research Council. That education is a huge component of what you do. Can you tell us a little bit about PERC's role in keeping propane safe?
Absolutely. So you did mention education. We do a lot of things in that space. One thing is we provide a lot of data, a lot of research data to government agencies who may be thinking about changing a law. Anybody that needs research, come to PERC. We probably have a data set. In addition to that, though, safety. Safety is critical for what PERC does. We train our entire industry on the safe delivery, handling, all those topics. And I guess that's critical as a consumer. If you know that somebody's coming onto your farm, to your residence property, know that they've had the ability for world-class training through our organization.
I love that. And it's everybody. It's not just the person handling the propane. It's drivers. It's whoever could touch it in the industry.
Absolutely. From the person answering the phone at that local office who you're buying your propane from, they've got training through our organization as well. All the way to delivery trucks, to transport loads. All those folks have the ability, and it's free of charge. All that is delivered, developed, delivered by us for the industry free of charge.
Keep it safe. Mike, let's talk about keeping it safe on the farm. Proper tank placement is crucial for any propane utilizer. What should we know when it comes to placing that tank?
Yeah, ventilation's key. So you want it away from the buildings. You want ventilation on all sides. That tank needs to be out and about, kind of away from its any other thing that could inhibit the ventilation aspect of it. It needs to be on a stable platform, whether that's soil, it can be on soil, can be on concrete pad, but really it just needs to be a stable source. We don't want that tank to move at all because it can impact the piping, other things like that.
That makes a lot of sense. So well ventilated, stable source. Thinking about safety, Mike, we've come through harvest, we've used a lot of propane. Why is it important for producers to understand the risks of what they're working with?
Well, anytime you, as a producer or staff around the farm, is touching a fuel, we want to make sure that you understand what it is, how it reacts, the properties of it. So I guess I'll point a couple out, and I'm probably as guilty as anybody. If you've got a forklift that runs on propane, for example, don't just grab a new bottle. Make sure you've got your protective equipment on, your gloves, your goggles. Propane it's a liquid inside that vessel, and there will be some frostbite concerns if you would blow a hose, anything like that. So gosh, be mindful of it, what it is. It's very safe as long as everything stays intact, but we do have hose failure from time to time. So anytime you're around the fuel, just be very conscious, have your protective gear on. I think that's best practices.
Absolutely. Be prepared. Always good advice. And Mike, I understand PERC has resources out there. Where can farmers go to get those to help be more prepared?
Absolutely. Go to propane.com. We've got an entire digital section. The propane folks, if you can't find it, go talk to your propane supplier. I think they'll be able to help you. But go to propane.com, use the search bar, type in a topic that you're looking for. Most likely it'll pop right up and you can watch that segment.
All right. Mike Newland, Director of Agriculture Business Development with PERC. Thanks for talking with us this week.
Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Greg Solier is back now with his extended farm weather forecast for the nation.
Well, Greg Solier is back with a look at what's to come from a precipitation perspective. And Greg, who's going to see what next week?
Little of this, little of that. No major systems for this week, with the exception, if you're still trying to dig out from the major lake effect snowbouts through Michigan, Pennsylvania, New York State over the past week. Probably more of that as the week wears on with a couple of more cold air troughs moving out of the Canadian Prairie. Winds off the Great Lakes region. A quarter-inch moisture for the Delta, Mid-Atlantic region, parts of the Ohio Valley. Late in the week, maybe something trying to get going out through parts of the western Dakotas. Spotty moisture in the mountains of the southwestern part of the country. Late in the week into the Pacific Northwest. So overall, some moisture, Mike, but nothing major or significant. Again, no storms expected this week across the country.
All right. What are you expecting temperature-wise as we get into the week of December 16th?
Now, the pattern shift that gets underway late in the coming week continues on here as we get ready to welcome in the solstice on the 21st. Look at the flood of mild Pacific air all the way into the eastern Corn Belt. The last piece of cold cold air rotating through the northeast of New England, mid-Atlantic region down through Florida, more normalized temperatures there. So a pretty comfortable go of it with outdoor work and livestock operations across the heartland. A little more moisture gain for Montana up near the Canadian border, parts of Minnesota, the northern lakes region, probably some snowfall here. Mid-Atlantic region down through Florida. It will be wet weather with a little more normalized moisture back across the heartland. Nothing big there. Dry for the high plains back into California. So not the greatest of scenarios, Mike, for a white Christmas across much of the country.
Do you expect to see that warm weather low hang around through the Christmas holiday?
We do. Really no Arctic air in sight. A little drop off in the jet stream pattern in the Pacific Northwest to trough here. But look at the warmth relative to mid to late December from Texas into the Corn Belt into the Northeast in New England. Some snow melt and at worst maybe thaw free cycles getting underway. The moisture pattern will pick up. Probably a rain snow mix from about the border trade on northward. Beneficial rains for much of the eastern and southern plains from a drought standpoint. Normal moisture for the southeastern part of the country. A little more snow back in the forecast for the Pacific Northwest and Big Sky country. So overall, pretty easygoing weather pattern here as we move through the holidays.
What does the crystal ball show for the first few days of the new year?
Again, no real cold air, supercharged cold air inside. It's a fast west to east jet stream pattern. We'll get a little piece of cold air to rotate southward into the upper Midwest, northern Great Lakes region. Nothing bitter or biting there. A little low of warmth back across California, southern plains into the southeastern part of the country, so no real significant frost or freeze potential as well, although we had that last week from a moisture standpoint. More Clipper-style weather systems out of Big Sky across the Dakotas, northern and eastern Corn Belt mix there. Moisture expected to be in the form of rain over the mid-Atlantic region. Meanwhile, more normalized precipitation for the southern plains, high and dry over the southwestern reaches of the country. So plan accordingly here in the days to come. Santa may or may not have a white Christmas. We'll keep you posted.
Our Farm Progress Roundup is sponsored by Brandt Industries. Lead the field with Brandt's lineup of versatile high-speed discs and achieve better results with every pass. Visit brandt.ca for more. For our update this week, we're checking in with the editor of Dakota Farmer, Sarah McNaughton-Peterson. Sarah, thanks for taking the time to talk with us this week.
Absolutely. Always great to visit, Mike.
Now, I will say it looks like we've had a bit of a name change since the last time we spoke with you, Sarah. It sounds like it's been personally a busy month.
Yeah, it has been. I got married at the beginning of November, and then we just launched into the holidays. So you'll see a new byline in all of our magazines.
Well, congratulations to both you and your husband, Sarah. And of course, you've continued writing for Dakota Farmer and doing the FP Next podcast with Nebraska Farmer editor Kurt Arns. Let's talk a little bit about that FP Next. You've got a fun episode out this week. Can you fill us in?
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of delve into an important topic, and we talk about the farmer's perspective on climate change. And we visit with Southwest Farm Press senior editor Shelley Hughley, and she talks a lot about the water problems and the aquifers in Texas and how cropping systems and cover cropping and livestock development have all kind of changed in Texas, and how that's kind of all stemmed from the change in weather and the change in climate.
Interesting. We're going to see those impacts across the country, it sounds like. And now, Sarah, for folks who maybe haven't listened to the FP Next podcast, give us a few more details. How often does it come out, and where can folks find it?
So we are available everywhere, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, the Farm Progress website, YouTube, anywhere you listen to podcasts, we're there. It launches every other Tuesday, and we talk about all kinds of exciting topics from carbon to climate change to footballers who farm. There'll be all kinds of topics for anybody who's interested in anything agriculture related.
All right, folks, check that out every other Tuesday. New episodes of the FP Next podcast. And Sarah, you continue editing the Dakota Farmer News magazine. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening in the Dakotas. It's cold has set in up there, hasn't it?
Yeah, so winter has officially arrived. We got spoiled with kind of a nicer, more mild fall. And then a couple weeks for Thanksgiving early, just the temps dropped, the snow's piling up. So we're back to typical winter weather up here.
Back to winter weather, but of course there's always something to cover from the world of agriculture. Continue to follow Sarah's work to see what's happening up in the Dakotas and what's coming in the world of agriculture on FP Next. Sarah McNaughton-Peterson, thank you so much for talking with us this week.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, where we spotlight another great American farm tractor. It's heat houser season on the tractor. Show me your heat houser, your half cab, your cabette, your windbreaker, whatever we call it. I put out the plea the other day on the social media, and I want to share with you the way the prices have climbed over the years. Max's Tractor Shed brought to you by Mystic Lubricants. Mystic Lubricants are made to make it last. My friend Bill Burnham shared a farm store publication with me, one of their catalogs from 1967, that showed what you would have paid for one of those canvas cabs, a half cab, cabette, whatever it was. Back in '67, you could have gotten one for $27. Now, if you wanted the wings and you wanted the windshield, that was another $6 for $33. Warren Hardy, who farms in North Carolina, told me he worked for an Alice Chalmers dealership back in 1980. A woman bought one for her husband as a Christmas present that year. It was about $120. These days, I think you'll spend somewhere from $300 to $350, maybe up to $400 for one. Let's take a look at some that are already on at Morris, Illinois. Andrew Christopher put his Femco on last weekend. It looks brand new, standing out against the faded iron of that John Deere. Brent Bauer at Paola, Kansas, has an original TSC heater cab on a 1942H. Dan Glinsky in Michigan has an original windbreaker. Yeah, that's what it says, that blue spot there, on a 1952H. They do provide some warmth, and I think for many of us, they provide some warm memories. As Dale Jensen in Iowa pointed out, he remembers working with his dad out of the field, hauling the crop in from the field, hauling the empties back out. Yes, there was some warmth, to be sure, from that half cab, that cabette, that windbreaker, that heat houser, whatever it is that's keeping you a little bit warm in these cold days of winter on those open station tractors. Mark Stock is here every weekend for Big Iron, and we bring him in again right now.
Well, hello, Max. We're into December, and the mass number of items selling this month is unbelievable. And we start here December the 10th with the Brabeck Farms Retirement Auction by Nickerson, Nebraska, selling a 2023 John Deere S780 Combine. Also on December the 10th, Sugar Creek Farms Partnership, Dixon, Illinois, selling a Case-IH Steiger 370 four-wheel drive tractor. And David Zelvinsky is retiring from LaPorte, Indiana. On December the 11th, equipment will sell for Dave Anderson, the retirement sale in Odell, Nebraska. Greenway Equipment Inc. with locations in Arkansas and Missouri. Parallel Ag with locations in Illinois, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. Stotz Equipment, located in Burley and Twin Falls, Idaho. Western Equipment with locations in New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas. On December the 12th, the Julie Osh Estate, featuring a white Field Boss 126 four-wheel drive tractor. And also on December the 12th, the Paul and Denise Barrowman Retirement Sale, items located by Nebo, Illinois. You will not find equipment selling in America any nicer than what you'll find on this sale selling December the 12th. Check it all out on Big Iron and SullivanAuctioneers.com.
Our FFA Chapter Tribute is brought to you by Pioneer, developing new generations of seed innovations for new generations of farmers. Pioneer, what's next happens here. This week, we're getting to know the leadership from the Missouri State FFA, and Michaela Rojas, serving as the first vice president for that organization, joins us. Michaela, thanks for talking with us this week.
Thank you so much for having me.
I understand you grew up outside Purdon, Missouri. Michaela, tell us a little bit about the agriculture around Purdon.
Yeah, so I grew up on a small commercial cattle operation in Purdon, Missouri. A lot of north central Missouri is cattle. There are some crops, but it's really good cattle land. So that's what I grew up on. But in FFA, I learned a little bit more about agriculture through my SAE project. I had a floriculture SAE, so I got a little bit of the best of both worlds.
Learning some of that specialty crop action. That is exciting. Now, Michaela, you are serving in FFA leadership, but I'm curious, what made you want to join FFA in the first place?
I think one of my biggest motivations to join FFA was definitely my grandma. She was a 4-H member. She couldn't join FFA back in the day, but she's very passionate about agriculture and helping people to succeed. So my grandma was definitely my biggest motivation.
That is fantastic. Thinking about your year so far of service, Michaela, what have been some of the highlights for you?
Oh man, I definitely loved FFA camp. I had never been as a member, and then this year we got to serve 2 weeks of FFA camp, and it was truly such a joy to see members in their element and learning new things. So that was definitely the highlight of my year so far.
Well, that is fantastic. Before we let you go, what are your future plans? Do you hope to work in agriculture?
Yeah, so right now I'm attending Moberly Area Community College to get my associates in agriculture. And then I plan on transferring to the University of Missouri to major in agriculture with an emphasis in marketing and communications.
Fantastic. Well, Michaela, we wish you the best of luck as your career moves forward. We love to see great people staying in agriculture.
Thank you so much.
Colby Ag Tech is brought to you by PTx, a new brand from AGCO that includes precision ag technologies from Precision Planting and PTx Trimble. It might be wintertime, but Chad Colby is thinking about next year's spraying routines, and he's got new technology that might just make that spraying a little bit easier.
Precision Planting is well known for its whole suite of performance parts for your planter. But if you have not been to a winter conference or a farm show recently, you may not know that they've been working real hard to bring some cutting-edge performance to your sprayer as well.
Yeah, you're right, Chad. We've been working really hard on sprayers, and we have a couple really new and cool products out on sprayers. So to start with, we have Symphony Nozzle out. It's our PWM nozzle control system. So your standard rate control sprayer is spraying. It's adjusting the pump to hit your target rate across the field. But when you do that, your pressure changes. And so when we go to a PWM system, we control that rate at the nozzle and the pressure at the pump. And we get to control those independently, giving us nozzle by nozzle control for rate, swath. We can do turn compensation. And it also just, it opens the door for future expansion when we start getting into Symphony Vision and spot spray control.
So I know at the past shows, I've had a chance to see the nozzle demonstration you guys had. Talk a little bit about some of the feedback you've got, because certainly you've had them out in the field this year. What's been farmers' response to that? Because you can retrofit this back on your old sprayer.
Right, yeah, there's been really positive feedback. We have quite a few systems out in the last year, and our goal really is just to keep teaching on really the advantages of PWM and the consistency and control you really get from that. There's still a lot of misunderstanding and lack of education just in that area.
I'm definitely not the only one that gets some window time in the sprayer. I can promise you this, though, I'm also not the only one keeping a close eye on this upcoming new technology. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Chad Colby.
Thank you, Chad. While input costs have come down, they are still elevated, and the ability to get those chemicals and pesticides right where you need them when you need them is vital. Over the past year on our Plan Smart, Grow Smart series from our friends at BASF, we've gotten to know 3 Corn Belt farmers. And now that the year has come to a close and harvest is wrapped up, Max Armstrong had the chance to get together with those 3 growers and reflect on the growing season that was.
Let's talk about the BASF products. What are some of the BASF products that you used this year, Chris?
Well, we ran a lot of Veltima, on the fungicide side of things. We've been using, just dabbling with a little Revitech on some soybeans, but we use a lot of Liberty, Sharpen, Zidua Pro. We've been using those for several years. And
we had some Certain out, and we put it in a pretty bad situation, and it performed really good.
Have you sat down with your local BASF representative yet? He's pretty close to home for you, I know, Ted. But,
I do that almost daily.
I bet, I can imagine.
My son Tim is my rep, so I'm lucky to be able to do that daily. So I have a pretty good team behind me. Yeah.
Plotting some strategy already for 25.
Yeah, we've talked about it. We get a plan, and then we may adjust it a little bit, and then when it gets go time, we may tweak it again. But he's got some good ideas, and convincing old dad to do it is the big thing.
Do you guys see BASF as an innovative company? How do you look at BASF as a company, as a corporate entity working with you?
chemistry has always been top notch when you're looking at all the products and all the companies out there, and having multiple products, and ones that work. So
I think they've always got new things in the pipeline, and they seem to be ahead of the problems more than some other companies. We talked about tar spot. Veltima was right there to cover the tar spot when we first started seeing it.
They don't sit still. I think they're always looking to improve or to get something new out there for the farmers, and so as a company, I think they're one of the leaders. I don't know that they're necessarily a follower. They're always working on getting new stuff out, and sometimes it doesn't come out as fast as we'd like to see it. Yeah. I don't, that's in the farming side of it. Sometimes that early stuff doesn't always work, but I feel when they do come out with something, it's something you can count on.
Yeah, the things that they do come out with are pretty solid. They've gone through enough research and development. They've spent the time and the dollars to make sure that the product in the jug is working, or in the bag now. Like you said, they've come out with seed that, it's been really good seed the past 2 years that we've had it on our farm. Actually, was the best beans we raised this year, and to be a 3.0 in Southern Ohio, we were surprised and pretty excited to have such success with them. So I really look forward to working with them on the seed side and hopefully having just as much success as we have with chemistry.
A big thank you to our farmers for participating in that series this year. You can see the full Plan Smart Grow Smart series online at plansmartgrowsmart.com. And thank you for joining us this week. Be sure to catch us next time, right here for This Week in Agribusiness. Take care, everyone.
This Week in Agribusiness has been brought to you by Case IH. Solutions for every challenge. Equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by 22 Creative Group and has been a presentation of Farm Progress Broadcast. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.